It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm going to have some fun sharing some things with you. Do we have anybody here who's happily married? Yeah? So tell me about your first date.
Our first date?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure it was a date. He asked me out, and I went to watch a movie in somebody else's dorm and came back, and he was ready to go out.
There you go. So you did, at the end of that date, you didn't get married?
No.
So here's what a lot of people think about networking. Hi, are you going to be useful to me? I want to know right now, because if not, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I mean, you've ever been in these situations, and that's what a lot of people think networking is. I mean, you have this Zoom. Are you going to be useful to me? I want to tell you all about me. I want to tell you all the things that I can help Fidelity with. I mean, you're here to offer your talent, but we need to have a little bit of dating, if you will. And part of leadership is knowing how you can share your talent and how you can show your skills and how you can give and why your giving is extremely important. And we're going to talk about a little bit about how to do all of that. Because, I mean, the dating analogy is kind of fun. I mean, can you imagine saying, hi, do you want 2 kids or 3? And he's like, oh my gosh, this is like completely the wrong workshop. But we have this whole sense of pressure when you think about the word networking. So part of what I want to share with you is just open up your mind to kind of different ways that you can network. What are some different ways you can actually network? What are some different things you can do that when you think about networking? Yes? Okay, so you ask for what I call a one-on-one meeting. You want to have and that's my favorite kind of networking, is the one-on-one. We're going to talk a little bit about how you work a room, just so you have a little bit of that information. What else?
Attend social events.
So attending events, yep. That how to work a room. Yep, what else? Excellent, professional organization. What else?
Using online tools,
Online tools, absolutely. What else? Use your existing network to expand. Absolutely. What else? How did I get started? Speaking volunteerism. 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 And actually speaking as well. If I had only known I test as an introvert. We'll be talking about introverts in a minute. Anybody here from the Midwest? Where are you from? Cleveland. Illinois. Anybody else? So those of us, Michigan. So those of us from the Midwest know we're friendly. And there's a big difference between friendly and extrovert. Extroverts get their energy from around the room, the more excitement, that's great for them. Introverts get their energy in a different way. Midwesterners are friendly, but that does not mean we're extroverts. And so in many cases what it is we're going to talk about how if I had only known as an introvert how easy it would be for me to network as a speaker. Because when I speak in front of an audience, I get to meet everybody for those few minutes. What are some other ways? Some of you have already been doing it this morning. You've been asking a question, or you've been participating. So ask a question. And I will tell you that this is a great way to rescue the speaker at times. And what will happen when I give a keynote speech is I give a keynote, people are usually happy about it. I get a round of applause, 1,001, 1,002, 1,003. And I am about ready to jump into the harbor because there's not a single question. And I feel just completely miserable. And I actually saw this happen about 6 or 8 years ago to Bob Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots. And he spoke for a big group of people, and he was extremely nervous. And most people didn't know Mr. Kraft other than football in the rest of the world. We all knew him locally as a businessman, actually I think in paper and is more of his business. But there was not a single question. And it was an international group of Indian entrepreneurs. And there were about 10 women in the room, and I happened to be one of them, and I'm a huge football fan. And I felt so badly for this man, so I raised my hand in the back, and the microphone is weaving back to me, and I'm thinking, you better think of a question really fast. But I had to do something to break the ice. And when you ask that first question, you break the ice. And all of a sudden, more and more questions came about. I found out afterwards there was an interesting cultural thing that in the Indian community, you don't want to ask this presenter a question if you don't know they know the answer. And I said, this is not how we think in the United States. You can trip them up. And they all obviously thought of soccer as football, and they didn't know the question to ask. So, and my question was, how did you decide to hire Bill Belichick? You have a really, really weird business model. You write a big check, and somebody else makes all the decisions. That's a weird business model. How did you decide to trust this person with your team, your money, your reputation? Obviously, this was before Spygate. So, you know, but he said in the beginning, he said, we had a cup of coffee and I just liked him. And it started from there. So in many cases, someone has a cup of coffee with you and they just like you, and it goes from there. So these are some different ways for you to network. What are a couple other different ways? Connect on a personal level, yep. What else? Yes?
You can use your peer network.
Your peer network, yep. What else? Any of you have a family? Kids? Dogs? I mean, you know, it's amazing how many people you're going to meet through your kids or your dog. You know, for 20 years, my mom had no name. She was Diane's mom. You know, so you through your family. What about any hobbies? Anybody play golf? You know, if you ever want to get a networking event for get a one-on-one for 4 hours, just ask them to play golf. They'll say no to 15 minutes. They'll say yes to a round of golf. Now, mind you, if you invite, you pay, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Sports, absolutely. What else? Anybody? How many of you got here because you thought, you know what, I want to join this program, and you called up and said, I want to be in that program? Did you have a reference? Did you get recommendations? You know, you have people who championed you to get into this program. So you have your champions. And that's a way for you to network, is to stay in touch with your champions. Absolutely incredibly important. All right, terrific. So this is kind of gives you some of the how and the ways you're going to network. And what I want to talk about now is kind of the quick, I'm going to hand out a chart called How to Work a Room. And I'm just going to quickly go through that very briefly because there's just a few kind of best practices, because you are going to be meeting a lot of people these next few weeks. And there's going to be just a few kind of best practices to kind of help you be sure you're kind of, one, prepared for this. Now, an honesty moment. Who here Googled me before today? There you go. So you Googled me before you. Okay. One of the things you're going to want to do is, before you go into any event and before you go into any meeting, you want to research your speakers moving forward. You want to know what their volunteer work is. How did they get started in their business? What are maybe some of their community events? This information is so readily available right now. You just really want to access this. It absolutely makes you much more prepared. You're not going to go into a classroom unprepared. You want to go into this classroom for these next few weeks completely prepared and ready to go. Can I just grab one? Thank you. I'm pretty good at remembering all the numbers, but not all. And so part of what it is you want to really, and you know, and this is, it used to be kind of creepy when people Googled you. It's now considered basically standard to do this. And what it does is it gives you all kinds of questions that you can ask people. It gives you ways to start conversations. Because a lot of what we're going to talk about today, the core of networking is a conversation. It really is. And so you want to be ahead of the game. You want to have information that you can start the conversation with. And in many cases, you'll have a heads up if you do a little bit of research. So the first thing that I'm going to share with you before you go into any event, before you go into any meeting, is do your homework. So what I like to do is I like to know the logistics. What was the dress code? We were in City Ballroom number 2. I figured out how long it was going to take for me to get from the parking lot over to here. You want to have all of those logistics completely taken care of, so when you are completely prepared, so you get there. I was one of the, other than this table over here, back you guys, I was one of the first people in the room. You all came into my space. I didn't have to go into your space. So I like to kind of get a sense of what the room is about. I've actually presented in this room before, so I know the room. So it wasn't as important for me to see it ahead of time, but I kind of did have that navigation and how to make that work. So you want to go in fully prepared. Another couple of things is, what are your expectations for the event or for the situation? And this goes a little bit for a one-on-one, but definitely for an event. Do you want to meet a couple of people? Do you want to just try and practice your introduction and how you say hello to other people? One of the things that happens at all networking events is name badges. And name badges, and this is tough for the guys who have without your jackets, but your name